Okay, so the state of Mistweavers in Dragonflight. Now that the design phase of development is effectively finished and tuning has begun, I wanted to look back at Blizzard's original blue post or statement for Mistweavers, saying that their goal was to support both the caster and melee playstyles and look at whether or not that's successful. Now, the too long didn't watch version of this is yes, it's a great spec. I'm a pretty critical person, so it sounds like I complain about a lot of things and have issues with a lot of things, but Mistweaver is feeling really good right now. Now, in Shadowlands, Mistweaver is a spec that has the caster and melee playstyles, but they're kind of woven together so that you do both all the time. So when you Fistweave, you're pressing Essence Font and you're still using or standing still and hardcasting Vivifies, and you're still trying to get your enveloping mists out and then extend them. You're trying to use melee and hardcast at the same time. Now, in Dragonflight, I would say the biggest fundamental change and what the new talent tree allows you to do is it allows you to separate those two styles out. So that if you want to Fistweave and not hardcast a single ability, you can, and it's even optimal. It's really good. And vice versa, if you only want to cast spells and you don't want to be in melee range at all, you can now do that. These 4 points are more impactful and more fun and more of a game changer for Mistweaver than some other healing specs got in their entire talent tree. These 4 points are crazy. So obviously, your Phalanx Stomp is the same ability effectively as the Shadowlands version, but now it also procs Ancient Teachings. And then if you have Ancient Concordance while standing in it, your Blackout Kick cleaves, your Tiger's Palm also cleaves, and your Spinning Crane Kick gets effectively the same benefit as Ancient Teachings. 125% of the damage done goes out to healing nearby allies. You add instant cast Vivify on every 10 seconds to that Fistweaving style, and things like Shiji with the short cooldown, your Renewing Mists bouncing around and spreading from Rising Sun Kicks and proccing Enveloping Mists and things. The power of a purely Fistweaving Mistweaver is really quite good. And I think at the moment, I think that's tuning aside. I think regardless of how the numbers change over the coming weeks to months, I think that Fistweaving will be very strong, especially in Mythic Plus, more so than any other aspect of the game, and very fun. It's very fluid now. You're not juggling hard-casted spells in and out of melee. You now get to basically just Fistweave, and you get a lot of additional benefits from Fistweaving. And vice versa is that if you want to play a caster Mistweaver and you drop the Phaline Wheel, you drop Ancient Teachings, you take Clouded Focus, you drop Teachings of the Monastery, you swap Rising Mist for Tear of Morning, you can play a hard casted version of Mistweaver that is also very strong and feels fluid like a full toolkit of purely casted abilities. The only difference, other than obviously the range of your playstyle, is that the Fistweaving version really doesn't need or use mana at all. And the casted version definitely does. Now, I think you have to almost abuse or leverage Clouded Focus as a caster build to really make it work as a playstyle, or else you're going to run quite quickly. Ancient Teachings has been nerfed from the 250% of damage converted to healing that it was in Shadowlands down to half of that, 125% Dragonflight. Now it is a big nerf, but it really is only a nerf on single targets. If you can cleave enemies with the Phaline Stomp nodes, you're doing, even at the reduced conversion, you're dealing, the napkin math is about twice as much damage and twice as much healing as you were by purely Fistweaving in Shadowlands, and that is also not including the extra renewing mists you get and the enveloping procs and all the other things that happen at the same time as you purely fistweaving. So your throughput as a fistweaver is significantly higher, especially on multiple targets in Dragonflight than it is in Shadowlands. And that is largely what goes towards making purely fistweaving viable. In Shadowlands, you fistweave for your maintenance healing, and then as soon as you actually have to move health bars, you start casting spells. Whereas in Dragonflight, it feels like that is no longer necessary. You can do crazy throughput by fistweaving now. You don't have to cast spells. One of the pain points of Shadowlands, at least for me, was if you were fistweaving and you, for example, someone was on 90% health and someone was on 20% health, and you Rising Sun kick a mob, it crits, and it heals the person on 90% because the smart healing of fistweaving isn't that smart. That's effectively gone in Dragonflight as well because of the amount of times you hit and the healing instances you create with fistweaving. The chance of you laying an enormous heal on someone who doesn't need much healing is quite low. You can really like keep a whole team topped, even at varying health levels and incoming damage rates and things. You can just fistweave and be pretty confident that the right healing is going to go to the right targets. The downside of all this is that with ancient teachings only being 125%, your fistweaving healing specifically on single targets is going to be about half of what it was in Shadowlands. It's quite weak. Now, the upside of the new talent system is that you now have the option to take Shiji and short cooldown. So a boss, you can have it up, for example, every boss fight or mini boss or tough pack or whatever. It's up very often if you need that extra healing on a single target. And you get a lot of more passive healing from your extra renewing mist spreading and bouncing around, and your misty peaks with your renewing mist procking enveloping mist. This procs a lot. If you really want to as well, I've even played around with a build that takes this misty peaks and then also takes the overflowing mists. And I have found in some situations the overflowing mists out heals the enveloping mist, or at least does roughly the same. It's can be quite a lot of healing. You can fistweave, and you can fistweave the entire dungeon, and those 4 talent nodes could be 10, 20, even 30% of your overall healing. It's really significant. One of the things I imagine is going to get changed as tuning begins in earnest is that at the moment, the Phaline nodes have made Tiger's Palm into Blackout Kick such an incredibly numerically powerful 2 globals that it makes pressing Spinning Crane Kick, even with Awakened Phaline, almost always a bad choice. Tiger's Palm, which cleaves into Blackout Kick, which then also cleaves, is something like 820% spell power damage in 2 globals, whereas Spinning Crane Kick is 40% per target per global. So you need something like 10 mobs in order for Spinning Crane Kick to be optimal. But Spinning Crane Kick beyond 5 targets has the inverse square scaling, so you actually need something like 15 to 20 mobs packed in together to make pressing Spinning Crane Kick do more damage and healing than just pressing Tiger's Palm Blackout Kick. I imagine this will get fixed. I hope that it doesn't mean that the Blackout Kick and Tiger's Palm Cleave gets nerfed. I hope actually it means that Spinning Crane Kick gets buffed. As far as the casting build goes, if you want to drop all of your Fistweaving nodes, so you drop Teachings, you drop the Phaline Stomp nodes, you swap Ancient Teachings for Clouded Focus, and you swap Rising Mist for Tear of Morning, and then you take really whatever you want. Whatever extra points you have from dropping Phaline Branch, you can put into whatever you like as a caster. It's unfortunate at the moment. I hope tuning changes this, but at the moment, Zen Pulse is really pretty bad. Doesn't do much damage. The other difficult part about making it work at the moment on beta is it's bugged. It doesn't obey your proper targeting, and you can't use mouse over macros for it. So it's a bit of a pain. But as far as standing back and casting spells rather than fist weaving, your healing will be stellar. Like really quite good. I don't see a casted Mistweaver struggling with anything really at all other than mana. If you leverage clouded focus as much as humanly possible, your mana should be okay. Even life cycles as well should be okay. The only problem is with a casting build is that you give up effectively all of your damage. You will basically deal no damage as a casting Mistweaver. But I know that there are some people that don't really care about that, and they pick a healer to heal, and that's you. Then Mistweaver could still also be a good choice for you. I actually think a casted Mistweaving build is going to be what's optimal for raid. The main reason I say this is because Rising Mist does not extend the renewing mists caused by rapid diffusion. If that did work, I know on Max's talent, whatever roundup stream with the Mistweaver discussion, those guys were talking about how crazy this would be, because I think at the time of that discussion, testing these nodes wasn't available. So they just assumed that Rising Mist would extend the rapid diffusion. And they were talking about how, we might be going back to late BFA, 45% haste kind of vibes, where Mistweavers could blanket the entire raid with enveloping permanently. That isn't going to happen. Not even close. And we don't know if this is a bug or not. Now, it seems like it would be way too strong. If you could use Rising Mist to extend your rapid diffusion rems, and then stack as much haste as humanly possible, I could see Mistweavers getting really out of control throughput-wise. They would be incredibly strong, but I also don't think that's going to happen, because I don't think it's meant to work that way. Now, the caveat is there are a couple of other healers in beta that have similar talents, like Holy Priest, for example. You press a spell, you press Prayer of Healing, and it has a chance to proc a renew on one of the targets for 6 seconds, similar to this Renewing Mist proccing on a target for 6 seconds. Now, up until last week's beta build, the renew that you procced from that talent wasn't affected by haste. So I'm not sure if this is one of those consequences of all of those kind of like the way that Blizzard implemented it by the way it was coded, press spell, procs ability for X seconds, and they were implemented in a similar way for all healers, and they didn't quite work well. We don't know if that's going to be the case here. But like I said, if this did go live, that Rising Mist did extend your renewing mist for rapid diffusion, Mistweaver would get out of control. Now, I'm going to assume that that won't be the case, which then means that I think Tear of Mourning will be the go-to play for raids. I think Mistweavers who really min-max Clouded Focus to extend their mana enough and to buff the Vivify enough to use Tear of Mourning and Clouded Focus to basically spam enveloping mists prior to big raid-wide damage coming out to get a lot of renewing mist active to then hit Vivify. I think that will be quite a good build. I also think just the basic Refreshing Jade Wind, Essence Font sort of build for Mistweaver will also be quite good as a casted version. A lot of this is going to come down to tuning. At the moment, Vivify is way too strong. That's partly because it's just been brought over from its Shadowland version and then buffed by 40% with the improved Vivify nodes. That's kind of skewed a lot of the casting Mistweaver toolkit, because Vivify is just, it's the panacea, it's the hammer and everything is a nail. Because it's good at everything. It's good at single target healing, cleave healing, spread healing, anything you want. Any damage profile you want to heal, Vivify is great for it at the moment. We'll see how that changes going forward. But as far as talents go that support a casted playstyle, Mistweavers are in a very good spot if you do not want to Fistweave. One of the pain points of casted builds, though, is that at the moment, Gusts of Mists or the Mistweaver Mastery is, I want to say, all but useless. So much healing now comes from your additional REM coverage and your procced envelopings and your clouded focus with like buffed enveloping and vivifiers and stuff like that, means that your gusts healing takes up a very small proportion of your overall healing. I'm hoping this is one of the things that gets tuned, and if so, hopefully that makes Bone Dust Brew more of a viable option. All in all, I'd say that the support for caster and melee Mistweavers is definitely there. The spec as a whole feels really quite good. Probably the best feeling healer on all of beta right now, but also with more options than ever before. If you want to cast only, you can. If you want to Fistweave only, you can. It's a great spec. I'm interested to hear feedback on people who particularly disagree with me. I want to know if there are other people out there who think that there are different builds that I've overlooked or missed, or that I have some shit takes or something. So if you have any of those, let me know. And algorithm stuff. Thanks.